March of 1952, and I reckon I bought my own coffin for $500 cash. The auctioneer's gavel came down in that Flathead County courthouse like the hammer of judgment itself, and every soul in that room, every God-fearing Christian woman clutching her pearls, every man who'd tipped his hat to my late husband's uniform, they all stared at me like I'd gone plumb crazy. The old Kepler place. Haunted, they whispered. Cursed ground where a woman vanished clean off the earth 15 years back. Nobody bid against me. Not one. The county clerk pushed them deed papers across the counter with hands shaking like I carried the devil's own plague. I signed my name steady as Sunday services. By sunrise, I'd learn what they were all so scared of. By sunset, I'd understand why some secrets stay buried. And by dawn the next day, well, either I'd be free, or I'd be joining Ruth Kepler wherever she'd gone. The courthouse smelled of damp wool and 20 years of bad decisions. I sat there on that hard pine bench, my late husband's dog pressed against my leg like he knew I was fixin' to do something the whole county would call foolish. Sarge, that's what Thomas named him when he came back from Korea. Him and the dog both carrying wounds nobody could see. He had his head up, ears working. German shepherd, mostly gray now, with a muzzle white as January snow. 9 years old and still sharp as a tack. The auctioneer, a fat man with a voice like gravel in a tin can, droned through the list. Foreclosed farm equipment. A pickup truck with a busted transmission. Nobody much cared. Small crowd, smaller interest. Then he cleared his throat different, like something stuck there wouldn't come loose. Next item. Parcel 7B, the old Kepler place. 160 acres, one cabin. Condition poor. One well of unknown status. 15 years of back taxes. County sellin' as is, where is. The room went quiet as a graveyard at midnight. I felt the shift before I heard it. The woman next to me, Judith Pritchard, Deacon's wife, never missed a Sunday service or a chance to judge. She pulled her skirts away from mine like I carried something catchin'. Behind me, old Frank Stenson muttered to his son, loud enough for the Lord himself to hear. Cursed ground. Ain't no Christian woman got business even thinking about that place. The auctioneer looked uncomfortable as a cat in a baptismal font. We'll open the bidding at $500. My hand went up. Lord have mercy, you'd have thought I'd stripped naked right there in the Lord's house. Women gasped. Men stared. Judith Pritchard made a sound like she was choking on her own righteousness. 500, I said, my voice steady as the mountains outside. Cash. The auctioneer blinked at me like I'd spoke in tongues. Ma'am, I'm obliged to tell you, this property has a history. You might want to reconsider. I ain't reconsidering nothin'. $500. Silence thick enough to cut with a dull knife. The auctioneer looked around the room, hoping somebody, anybody, would save him from this awkwardness. Do I hear 600? Anyone? 600? Not a soul moved. They just stared at me with a mix of pity and something else. Fear, maybe, or disgust that I dare touch what they'd all decided was untouchable. Going once. His voice picked up speed, rushing to get this over with. Going twice. Sold. To Mrs. Mercer. For $500. The gavel cracked down. Final as death. I stood up, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Nobody wanted to touch me now. Nobody wanted to get too close to the fool woman who'd just bought herself a grave. At the clerk's desk, young Sally Henderson, couldn't have been more than 22, married 6 months to the banker's boy. She handled my money like it was crawling with maggots. Counted it twice. 3 times. Like maybe it wasn't real. Like maybe I wasn't real. She pushed the deed across the counter, wouldn't even look me in the eye. Mrs. Mercer, she whispered, her voice shaken. My mama says, she says bad things happen on that land, to women especially. She says you ought to. Your mama can say what she likes, I said, not unkind. I've survived worse than county gossip. Outside on the courthouse steps, the cold March wind hit me square in the face. Clean, sharp, free. Sarge pressed against my leg again. He knew. Dogs always know when the world's about to shift under your feet. I was folding that deed into my coat pocket when I heard boots on the steps behind me. Heavy, deliberate. The kind of walk that says a man's used to being obeyed. Mrs. Mercer. I turned. Sheriff Harlan Riggs stood there, hat in hand, his face all practiced concern. But his eyes were calculating something I couldn't quite figure. Sheriff, that's quite a purchase you made. Might I ask, what exactly are you planning to do with the Kepler place? I looked at him long and steady. Something in the way he asked, too careful, too measured, told me this wasn't no casual question. Live there, I said simply. It's what folks generally do with property they own. His jaw tightened just a fraction. Ma'am, I knew Ruth Kepler. I was the one investigated her disappearance. That land, it's got a darkness to it. For your own safety, I appreciate your concern, Sheriff, truly, but I reckon I can handle a little darkness. I walked past him, Sarge at my heel. Behind me I heard him say, quiet but clear, "It ain't the darkness you need to worry about, Mrs. Mercer. It's what's been buried in it." I didn't turn around, didn't give him the satisfaction, but Sarge did. The dog looked back at that sheriff and let out a low growl I hadn't heard since Thomas's bad nights. The kind of growl that says, "I know what you are." The road to the Kepler place wasn't hardly a road at all, more like two ruts carved through 15 years of neglect, overgrown with sage and wild grasses gone to seed. My old Ford, Thomas bought her in '47, week before he shipped out. She handled it fine, but I could feel the land itself pushing back, like it didn't want nobody coming near. Sarge rode beside me, nose out the window, taste in the wind. First time since Thomas died, I'd seen something close to peace in that dog's eyes. The cabin sat in a clearing ringed by pines tall as church steeples. Smaller than I'd expected. Dark logs, chinked with mortar gone gray and crumbling. Porch sagged on the left side like an old man favoring a bad hip. But the chimney stood straight and proud. Riverstone, mortared solid. A woman who could patch together worse could work with this. I killed the engine. The silence came down like a wool blanket, thick, heavy, complete. "Well, Sarge," I said, climbing out, "this is home now." The dog jumped down, but he didn't run off like he usually did in new places. He stayed close, real close, head up, ears working, reading things I couldn't see. The front door wasn't locked, wasn't even latched proper, just open, like somebody stepped out for a minute 15 years ago and never came back. I pushed it wide. Hinges screamed like a wounded animal. Inside smelled of cold ashes and thyme. Dust hung in the air, caught by the late afternoon sun coming through windows so dirty they barely let the light through. Simple room. Table, two chairs, iron bed frame stripped bare, and that massive stone fireplace taking up the whole north wall. But it was the small things that caught me. The things that didn't fit 15 years of abandonment. A coffee mug on the table. Blue ring painted around the rim, faded but clear. Lipstick stain on the edge. Pale pink, the kind a working woman wears, not a painted lady. A book, face down, pages splayed open, like the reader meant to come right back. A woman's coat on a peg by the door, heavy wool, patched at the elbows, one pocket bulging with something small. I walked to that coat, slow, reached into the pocket, a pencil, worn down to a nub, and a small notebook, pages filled with numbers and coordinates, a woman's handwriting, neat and purposeful. "Ruth Kepler," I whispered to the empty room. "What were you working on?" Sarge whined. Not his usual sound, this was different. Urgent. He'd moved to the fireplace, nose to the ground, sniffing at the base of them river stones. Then he started pawing, scratching at one particular stone, dead center of the hearth. Same behavior he'd shown in Korea when he found ammunition caches buried under dirt floors. "Easy, boy, it's just old." But I stopped. Because my nurse's hands trained to find veins in the dark, to feel tumors through flesh, they could feel something wrong when I ran my fingers along that mortar. Different texture, newer, softer. This stone wasn't mortared in, it was sealed in. Outside, the light was dying fast. I needed to get a fire going, needed to unpack, an engine sound, faint at first, then growing louder. Sarge's ears flattened. That growl started deep in his chest, the one he'd give right before Thomas's bad nights turned violent. I moved to the window, rubbed a clear spot through the grime. County Sheriff's SUV, coming fast. Too fast for a friendly visit. It pulled up in a spray of gravel. Sheriff Riggs climbed out, and I could see it in the way he moved. This wasn't no welfare check. This was a message. I met him at the door. Didn't invite him in. Mrs. Mercer? He touched his hat brim. Polite. Professional. Wanted to make sure you got settled all right. Roads can be tricky after dark. I'm fine, Sheriff. Appreciate the concern. His eyes moved past me, scanning the cabin's interior, lingered on the fireplace. Something flickered across his face. Recognition. Fear. Finding everything. In order? Dusty. Drafty. Nothing I haven't handled before. He stepped closer, lowered his voice, almost kind. Ma'am, I knew Ruth Kepler. She was a good woman, smart. But this place? It got to her. Started seeing things that weren't there, making wild accusations. Got herself worked up into such a state that— That what, Sheriff? That she walked off into them woods one winter night and never came back. Some women— He paused, choosing words careful. Some women ain't built for this kind of isolation. The threat was clear as spring water. Ruth went crazy. Ruth disappeared. You could too. I met his eyes. Didn't blink. I've spent 15 years married to a man the war broke into pieces. I nursed him through screaming nightmares and whiskey bottles and the kind of darkness you can't imagine. I reckon I can handle a quiet cabin. His jaw tightened. Just offering friendly advice, ma'am. Duly noted. He left, but not before his eyes found that fireplace one more time. I bolted the door behind him, stood there shaken, not from fear, from rage, from finally understanding. They didn't want me here because the land was cursed. They wanted me gone because of what was hidden in it. I walked back to the hearth, knelt down where Sarge was still pawing at that stone. Pulled out the knife Thomas gave me. Good steel, kept it sharp, worked the blade into the mortar. It gave way easier than it should have. Not lime mortar, pitch-based, deliberate. 20 minutes of careful work. The stone slid free, heavy, took both hands. Below was darkness, but not empty darkness. I lit a lamp, lowered it into the space. Metal box. Military surplus. Stack of leather notebooks, and something else wrapped in cloth. I reached for the notebooks first, opened one. March 15th, 1937. They think I don't notice. The dead fish in Willow Creek. The Henderson baby born without eyes. The county inspector who changed his report after meeting with Blackwood. I'm documenting everything. If I disappear, this will speak for me. RK. My hands were shaking now. Ruth Kepler hadn't gone crazy. Ruth Kepler had found something worth killing for. I unwrapped the cloth object. A nurse's pin. Same school I attended. Class of 1929. We'd walked the same halls. Taken the same oath. First, do no harm. A sound from deeper in the cellar. Not wind. Not the house settling. Breathing. I raised the lamp higher. Saw movement in the darkness. A face. Young. Female. Eyes wide with 15 years of terror. A whisper. Raw and unused. Don't let them. No. Then she was gone. Pulling back into shadow. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ghosts don't breathe. Ghosts don't speak. Someone had been living under this cabin, and outside I heard it. New engines, multiple voices carrying on the wind, mean laughter. Through the window, orange flickers against the trees. Torches. They were coming. I didn't have time to think about the girl in the cellar. Didn't have time to process what 15 years underground does to a human soul. I had maybe 2 minutes before those torches reached my door. I slid the stone back over the hole, not sealed, just covered. Left a gap for air. Whoever was down there had survived this long. She'd survive a few more hours. Sarge moved to the door without me telling him. Low stance. Combat ready. Thomas had trained him well for this. Protect the position, protect the handler. I grabbed the only weapon I had, Thomas's old Louisville slugger from the truck bed. Ash wood, good heft. Cracked along the grain but still solid enough to make a point. The torches came through the trees like angry fireflies. I counted 6, maybe 7. Young men mostly, by the way they moved, all swagger and liquid courage. Leading them was Dale McKinney, Blackwood's foreman at the mine. thick as a fence post and twice as mean when he had whiskey in him. They stopped 20 feet from my porch, close enough to threaten, far enough to run if things went sideways. "Mrs. Mercer!" Dale's voice had that edge that comes from men who've been drinking and convincing each other they're righteous. "You need to come out here. We got to talk about this situation." I opened the door, didn't step out. Let them see the bat in my hand. Let them see Sarge's teeth catch in the torchlight. "It's past 9 o'clock, Mr. McKinney. Civilized folks are home with their families. What brings you to my property with fire and friends?" "Your property?" He laughed, ugly sound. "This here's cursed ground, woman. Bad things happen here. We're doing you a Christian kindness, helping you pack up before something terrible befalls you." Behind him, Billy Oates, couldn't be more than 19, still had peach fuzz on his chin. He shifted uncomfortably. Kid had enough sense to know this wasn't right, just not enough spine to say it. "I appreciate the concern," I said, voice level as a carpenter's square, "but I'm settled in just fine. You boys can head on home now." Dale took a step closer. The torchlight made his face look like something carved from rage itself. "You don't understand, Mrs. Mercer. This ain't a request. My boss, Mr. Blackwood, he's real worried about a woman alone out here. All kinds of accidents could happen. Fire, wild animals. A person could just disappear, like that Kepler woman did." The threat hung in the air like smoke. "Your boss can keep his worry," I said, "and you can tell him I said so. You got a smart mouth for a widow woman." Dale's hand went to his belt. Not a gun. Worse. A rope, coiled neat, loop already tied. "Maybe you need remindin' what happens to women who don't know their place." That's when something in me broke. Not fear. I'd lived with fear for 15 years, married to a man whose nightmares had teeth. This was pure, clean rage. My place? I stepped out onto the porch, bat loose in my hands. My place is where I'm standing, and I'm standing on land I paid for. My husband, God rest his troubled soul, he died so men like you could drink yourselves stupid in peace. I reckon that buys me the right to live in mine." The words hit different than I expected. Two of the men in back, Frank Cutler and Tom Reese, good men when they were sober. They lowered their torches slightly, shame flickering across their faces. But Dale's pride was wounded now. Drunk pride is the most dangerous kind. "We ain't leaving without—" Headlights cut through the clearing. Big truck, expensive engine. The mob parted like the Red Sea. Clayton Blackwood stepped out of a vehicle worth more than my whole life. 60-some years old, silver hair perfect even at this hour, face like it was carved from Montana granite itself. He didn't carry a torch. Didn't need to. He carried something more powerful. Authority 3 generations deep. "Dale, boys." His voice was quiet, controlled. The kind of quiet that makes loud men nervous. "I'll handle this. Go on home." They went. Didn't argue. Didn't question. Just melted back into the darkness like whipped dogs. Now it was just him. Me. Sarge between us. Growling low enough that only we could hear. Blackwood looked at my cabin. At me. At the bat in my hands. A thin smile touched his lips. "Mrs. Mercer." "Evelyn." "May I call you Evelyn?" He didn't wait for an answer. "I knew your husband. Fine man. Hero. Shame what the war did to him." "You didn't know him." "I know he'd want you taken care of, protected." Comfortable. He reached into his coat, pulled out an envelope. Even in the darkness, I could see it was thick. $10,000. Cash. You can count it right now if you like. That's for the inconvenience, for your pain, for starting fresh somewhere. Safer. It was more money than I'd see in 5 years of nursing. Maybe 10. And he delivered it like a gift, like mercy, like I should be grateful. "Why?" I asked. "Excuse me?" "Why does the richest man in the county want a widow off a worthless piece of property bad enough to offer 10 times what it's worth?" Something flickered behind his eyes. Calculation. Reassessment. "Evelyn, sometimes kindness doesn't need a why. Sometimes powerful men simply want to do right by a veteran's widow. But kindness has limits, and patience wears thin." He set the envelope on my porch rail. Careful. Deliberate. You have until tomorrow sundown. Take the money and go. Or, he looked at the cabin, at the dark windows, at the chimney reaching toward the stars. Or learn why nobody's lived here in 15 years. Learn it the way Ruth Kepler did. He walked back to his truck. Stopped. Turned. That dog of yours? He looks like he's trained to find things. Explosives. Ammunition. Hidden things. His eyes went to my door, to the darkness beyond. I'd be careful what you let him dig up, Evelyn. Some things are buried for good reason. He drove away, the red taillights disappearing into the trees like the devil's own eyes blinking out. I stood there, bat in one hand, envelope in the other. $10,000. Blood money. Silence money. I threw it in the dirt. Behind me, from inside the cabin, I heard it. Faint. Fragile as bird bones. Crying. The girl. The one who'd been buried alive for 15 years. She'd heard everything. The threats. The offer. Blackwood's warning. And she was crying because she knew in her bones, that I'd just signed both our death warrants by saying no. I turned back to my door, to my home, to the secret I'd inherited with $500 in a deed. Sarge looked at me, them amber eyes asking a question. You sure about this? No, I whispered. But we're doing it anyway. Inside, I knelt by the cellar stone, moved it aside. It's all right, I said to the darkness. You can come up now. They're gone. A pause. Then movement. Slow, painful. A hand emerged first. Thin, pale as milk. Fingers that hadn't seen sunlight in 15 years. I took that hand, helped her climb up into the lamplight. And God help me, when I saw her face. She was just a child, maybe 16. Eyes too old, body too thin, hair matted but carefully braided, like she'd been holding on to dignity with her fingernails. She looked at me with those ancient eyes and whispered, voice like rusted wire, "My name is Iris. Iris Kepler." And they killed my mother because she wouldn't stop asking questions. I got Iris fed first. That's what nurses do. Tend to the body before tending to the questions. Heated up some canned soup on the wood stove. Campbell's tomato, nothing fancy. Watched her eat slow, like her stomach had forgot what food was for. She held the bowl with both hands, savoring the warmth more than the taste. Sarge sat beside her. Didn't beg. Just watched. Protective already, like he recognized something in her. Another soul that had survived what shouldn't be survived. How long? I asked, gentle as I could. How long you been down there? 15 years. 3 months. 12 days. Her voice was rough, unused. I count. Helps keeps me here. 15 years. She'd gone into that cellar a baby, came out nearly grown. Your mother, Ruth, tell me what happened. Iris's hands trembled around the bowl. She was documenting things, water samples, dead livestock, babies born wrong. She knew it was the mine, Blackwood's mine, dumping poison into the headwaters. She had proof. The journals, I said. I found them. That's not all she had. Vials, glass bottles with water from the drainage, soil samples, lab results from Bozeman showing arsenic levels 40 times what's safe. Her eyes met mine, too old, too knowing. She was going to take it to the state, to the newspapers, make 'em shut it down. What stopped her? They did. Men came. I was down in the cellar. She'd built it special, for hiding me when inspectors came around. I heard shouting, her screaming my name, telling me stay down, don't come up no matter what. Then, silence. Then nothing. They took her, took all the evidence, left the journals 'cause they figured without the samples, it was just a crazy woman's scribblings. And you stayed. Where was I gonna go? Her laugh was bitter, broken. I'm a bastard child. Blackwood's son got my mother pregnant before he died in the Great War. His family never acknowledged me, Town would have put me in an orphanage if they believed I existed at all. So I stayed, waited, thought maybe she'd come back. My heart cracked clean through. 15 years waiting for a mother who was already dead. Someone's been bringing you food, I said. Who? She hesitated. Fear warring with need. Please, I said. I can't protect what I don't understand. Aunt Martha, my mother's sister, she couldn't take me in. Her husband works for Blackwood, but she couldn't let me starve neither. So she brought food, in the dark, never spoke, just left it and went. Martha Abernathy, the shopkeeper's wife, the only woman at that auction who'd looked at me with something close to kindness. Outside, the wind picked up, changed direction, brought a smell that made Sarge's hackles rise. Smoke, faint but growing. I moved to the window. Darkness had settled full now, but against it I could see an orange glow. Not from town, closer. They're burning the boundary markers, Iris whispered. That's what they did before. To mark the land as cursed. To warn people away. The glow grew brighter. Multiple fires now, ringing the property like a noose drawn tight. Then I heard it, voices, chanting low. Not words, just sound, meant to frighten, meant to drive out. They're coming back, Iris said, shrinking into herself. They always come back. I checked my watch. Just past midnight. Blackwood had given me till sundown tomorrow, but his men were done waiting. The fires crept closer. Through the window I could count them now. 8, 9, 10 separate blazes, each one tended by shadows that moved with purpose. Sarge pressed against my leg. Low growl. The kind that says this is bad, this is real bad, we need to move. But where? We were surrounded. And I had a girl who hadn't seen daylight in 15 years, couldn't run far, couldn't hide anywhere but the hole she'd already been buried in. I made a decision, probably a foolish one. I went to the door, opened it wide, stepped out onto the porch with nothing but Thomas's bat and my own stubborn will. That's far enough, my voice cut through the night. Surprised even me how steady it sounded. The fires stopped moving. The shadows behind them went still. Then one shadow detached itself from the others, walked forward into the space between the flames and my porch. Dale McKinney, still drunk, now angry drunk. You should have taken the money, he called out. Should have left while you could. Now we're gonna do this the old way. The old way? Burn it all. Cleanse this cursed ground with fire. You get out or you burn with it, don't matter to us which. Behind him, I saw it now. They weren't just carrying torches, they had kerosene cans. Burlap sacks soaked in oil, kindling bundles. This wasn't intimidation, this was erasure. There's a girl in here, I said, loud enough for all of them to hear. Child, innocent. You burn this cabin, you're murdering her. Ain't no girl, Dale shouted back. Kepler woman had no kids. That's just more of your crazy widow talk, just like Ruth's crazy talk before they took her away. They didn't know. All these years, nobody knew Iris existed except Martha. And now I just told them. Dale raised his torch. Last chance, Mrs. Mercer. Behind me, Iris's voice, barely a whisper. There's a root cellar. Outside, behind the cabin. Storm shelter from the old days. If we can reach it. An engine roared to life. Headlights blazed on, blinding us all. Sheriff Riggs' cruiser came tearing into the clearing, siren screaming lights flashing red and blue like the wrath of God itself. He skidded to a stop between the mob and my cabin, stepped out, hand on his weapon. That's enough. His voice was raw, desperate. Dale, put it down, all of you, put it down now. The mob hesitated. Authority versus orders, law versus money. Dale's face twisted with rage. Blackwood said, I don't care what Blackwood said. I'm not losing my badge over you idiots committing murder. For a moment, it hung in balance, the whole night breathing like a wounded animal. Then Dale threw his torch. Not at the cabin, at the sheriff's cruiser. It hit the hood, rolled off, but the message was clear. We're done taking orders. The other men started moving forward, slow, inevitable. Riggs drew his weapon. I will shoot. So help me God, I will. A new sound cut through everything. Helicopter. Low. Fast. Military grade by the sound of it. Searchlights stabbed down from the sky, bright as Judgment Day, illuminated every face, every torch, every sin. A voice boomed from speakers, amplified and absolute. This is the FBI. Drop your weapons. Put your hands in the air. You are surrounded. Dale's torch fell from his hand into the dirt. The FBI. But how? Why? Then I understood. Ruth Kepler's sister, Martha. She'd been silent for 15 years, but tonight she'd made a phone call. The FBI took Dale McKinney and 4 others into custody right there in my clearing. Zip ties. Miranda rights read in monotone. Justice delivered by men in dark windbreakers who'd flown in from God knows where. Special Agent Morrison, tall black man with eyes that had seen worse than Montana mob justice. He took my statement on the porch while Iris hid inside, watching through the crack in the door. Mrs. Mercer, we received a call approximately 2 hours ago from a Martha Abernathy. She provided detailed information about potential environmental crimes, obstruction of justice, and, he checked his notes, a minor who's been concealed on this property for 15 years. That accurate? Yes, sir. We're going to need to speak with this child, verify her identity, get a medical evaluation. She ain't been outside in 15 years, Agent Morrison. She ain't seen daylight. You come at her with badges and questions and hospital lights, you'll break what's left of her. He studied me, calculating whether I was obstructing or protecting. How about this, he said finally. You bring her out when she's ready. We'll have a female agent, a doctor who specializes in trauma. We do this gentle, but we do it soon, tomorrow morning at the latest. I nodded. Tomorrow, you have my word. They left with their prisoners. Sheriff Riggs went with them, not in cuffs, but not free neither. His face was ash gray. A man realizing 15 years of looking the other way just caught up with him. The quiet after they left was profound, like the land itself was breathing out. I went inside. Iris was curled in the corner, Sarge pressed against her like a living shield. They're gone, I said softly. All of them. You're safe. She looked up at me with those 2 old eyes. For how long? Fair question. Blackwood wasn't in them FBI vehicles. Neither were half a dozen other men who'd profit from her silence. Long enough, I said. Come on, let's get you cleaned up proper. I heated water on the stove, found an old washtub in the shed, hung blankets for privacy. It wasn't much, but it was human. It was dignity. While she washed, slow, careful, like she was relearning her own body, I laid out some of my clothes. They'd be too big, but clean was more important than fit. When she emerged, hair wet and finger-combed, wearing my spare dress cinched with a belt, she looked different. Younger, more fragile, more real. Thank you, she whispered. Ain't nothing to thank me for. It's just decent. She sat at the table, ran her fingers over the wood grain, touched the coffee mug that had sat there 15 years, her mother's mug. She used to let me sip from this, Iris said. On cold mornings, just a taste. Said I'd grow into coffee drinking when I was older. Her voice cracked. Guess I did. Just not the way she meant. I made us both coffee. Real coffee, strong and black. We sat across from each other at that old table, 2 women who'd survived what they shouldn't have. Iris wrapped her hands around the mug, same gesture her mother must have made 1,000 times. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. Why? She asked. Why didn't you take the money? Why didn't you leave? I thought about it. Honest answer. Because I'm tired of running from ghosts. Mine, yours, your mother's, and because... I paused. Because I know what it's like to be the woman everybody blames. The crazy one, the inconvenient one, the one that's easier to bury than believe. She understood. I could see it in her eyes. The FBI gonna want to put me somewhere, she said. Foster care, state home, somewhere appropriate for a girl with no family. You got family. Your Aunt Martha can't take me. Her husband would lose his job. Blackwood would see to it. And she's old, tired. She's done enough. The solution came to me sudden and clear as spring water. What if you had a different family? Iris looked up, confused. Montana law, I said, remembering things Thomas used to tell me when he'd talk about adopting before the war broke him. War widows can petition for emergency adoption, especially if the child's in danger, especially if there's no suitable blood relatives willing or able. You'd, you'd do that? I'd do that. Tears started down her face. First real tears I'd seen from her. Not fear tears, not grief tears, something else. Hope tears. She reached across the table, took my hand, squeezed it with strength I didn't know she had. Evelyn, she said, first time she'd used my name, there's something you need to know about the evidence. It ain't all gone. She reached into her dress, my dress, pulled out something on a string around her neck. A small glass vial, liquid inside, dark and oily. Water sample, September 1936, Blackwood Mine drainage. Mom gave it to me the night they came. Said, keep this safe, keep this hidden. Someday it'll matter. My heart hammered. One vial. One piece of proof. That's why they can't let me live, Iris said. Long as I exist, long as this exists, they're in danger. They'll come again, different way. Legal way, maybe. But they'll come. As if summoned by her words, headlights swept across the window. Not FBI, not sheriff. A car I didn't recognize. Expensive. Dark. It stopped at the edge of the clearing. Didn't approach. Just sat there. Engine running. Watching. A message. We know you're here. We know what you have. And we ain't done. Sarge growled. The kind that means threat assessment. Severe. Then the car backed away. Slow. Deliberate. Disappeared into the darkness, but not gone. Never gone. I looked at Iris, at the vial around her neck, at the future we'd just promised each other. Tomorrow, I said, we go to the FBI. We give them everything. The journals, the vial. Your testimony. We end this. And if they don't believe me, a girl who's been hiding in a cellar for 15 years, who's got no records, no proof she even exists. I squeezed her hand back. Then we make them believe. Outside in the distance, I heard it. Faint, but clear. Another engine. Then another. They weren't sending drunk farmhands this time. They were sending something worse. Something legal. Dawn came cold and gray. I hadn't slept. Just sat in that wooden chair by the door, bat across my lap, watching Iris breathe. First peaceful sleep she'd probably had in 15 years, curled up on the bare mattress with Sarge pressed against her back. The knock came soft, respectful, not the pounding of men with torches. I moved to the window, recognized the figure on my porch even in the weak light. Martha Abernathy. Older than I'd thought, 70 if she was a day, wearing a heavy coat against the cold, carrying a wicker basket. I opened the door. She looked at me with eyes red from crying. I know it's early, she said, voice thick, but I had to. I needed to see her, to see if she's alive, she's inside, she's safe. Martha's legs nearly gave out. I caught her elbow, steadied her. Come in, but quiet. She's sleeping. Martha stepped inside like she was entering a church, moved slow to where Iris lay, just stood there, staring at her niece, the child she'd kept alive but never held, never spoke to, never comforted. She got so big, Martha whispered. Last time I saw her face, she was barely 3 feet tall. Now she's nearly grown. Yeah. Martha set down her basket, pulled out a thermos, sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, fresh apples. Same provisions she'd been leaving in the cellar for 15 years. Habit stronger than reason. I called the FBI, she said, still not looking at me. From the payphone outside Miller's drugstore, 2 in the morning, told them everything. Names, dates, where to find the mine drainage, what Blackwood did to Ruth. Why now, after 15 years of silence? She finally met my eyes. Because I saw what they were going to do to you. Same thing they did to my sister. And I couldn't. I can't watch another woman disappear because men with money decided she knew too much. Your husband. My husband. Her laugh was bitter. Earl's been on Blackwood's payroll 30 years. Store survives because of mining company contracts. Our house, our car, our whole life, built on looking the other way. When I told him I was coming out here this morning, you know what he said? I waited. He said, "Don't come back." Said I made my choice. Said he can't protect me anymore. She pulled off her wedding ring, set it on the table next to Ruth's old coffee mug. 42 years of marriage, gone, because I finally found my spine. Behind us, Iris stirred, opened her eyes, saw her aunt standing there in the morning light. "Aunt Martha?" The old woman broke, went to her knees beside that mattress, reached out with shaken hands. "I'm sorry," Martha sobbed. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I could have." Iris sat up, looked at her aunt, really looked at her, at the woman who'd kept her alive but kept her buried. Then she did something I didn't expect. She hugged her. "You came back," Iris whispered. "You always came back." They held each other, two women bound by blood and guilt and survival. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something, a start. I stepped back, gave them space, went to the window. The sun was rising proper now, light hitting the clearing, burning off the night's fear. That's when I saw it. Another vehicle coming up the trail, but this one I knew. Sheriff Riggs's personal truck, not the cruiser, his own. I tensed, grabbed the bat. He parked, got out slow, hands visible, no weapon on his hip, no badge on his chest, walked to my porch and stopped at the bottom step. Didn't try to come up. "Mrs. Mercer," he said, voice rough, tired. "I need to say something, and I need you to hear it." I stayed silent, let him talk. 15 years ago, I took a report about a missing woman, Ruth Kepler. I was young, eager to please the right people. Blackwood told me she'd run off, mentally unstable, seeing things that weren't there. He showed me medical records, witness statements, all of it looking official. All of it lies, I know now. He took off his hat, held it in both hands. I closed that case in 3 days. Didn't look hard, didn't ask questions, didn't want to, because asking questions about Blackwood in this county is how you lose your job, your house, your future. So I chose wrong. And a woman died because of it. And a child lived 15 years in darkness because I was too damn weak to do my job right. Martha had come to stand beside me, Iris behind her. Riggs saw them both. His face went pale. "Miss Kepler, there ain't words. There ain't—" "No, sir," Iris said, voice stronger than I'd heard it. "There ain't." "I came to tell you," Riggs continued. "The FBI's got jurisdiction now. They're taking over everything. My career's done. I'll likely face charges for obstruction. But before all that happens, I wanted you to know I'm going to testify. Against Blackwood. Against everyone who helped him. I'm going to tell the truth, even if it buries me." He put his hat back on, started to turn away. "Sheriff," I called out. He stopped. "That take courage. What you just did. Telling the truth when it costs you everything." "Courage?" He laughed, hollow. "Courage would have been 15 years ago. This is just penance." He drove away. A man carrying the weight of his own cowardice, trying to walk upright under it. Martha looked at me. "You think he means it, about testifying?" "I think a man who confesses his sins on your porch at dawn ain't looking to back out." The three of us stood there, widow, aunt, buried child, watching the sun climb higher. First full day of Iris's freedom in 15 years. That's when we heard it. Multiple vehicles. Coming fast. Not from town, from the other direction. FBI, I thought. Come to take statements. But Martha's face went white. "That ain't the FBI," she whispered. "That's a county emergency vehicle, ambulance." And behind it, I saw them now. 3 black SUVs. "Blackwood," Iris said, voice dead, defeated. "He's coming with doctors, medical authorities. He's gonna say I'm incompetent, mentally unfit, lock me away in a state hospital where nobody can hear me." My blood ran cold. Legal, clean, no torches, no violence, just paperwork and men in white coats and a girl who'd been underground so long, who could prove she wasn't crazy? The vehicle stopped in my clearing. Doors opened. Two men in suits, a woman in a nurse's uniform carrying a medical bag, and behind them all, Clayton Blackwood, smiling like a grandfather coming to collect a troubled child. He had a court order in his hand, emergency psychiatric evaluation, signed by Judge Porter, Blackwood's brother-in-law. He'd come to take Iris, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do to stop him. Blackwood stood in my clearing like he owned it, like he owned everything, the land, the law, the very air we breathed. The woman in the nurse's uniform stepped forward, professional smile, clipboard in hand. Miss Kepler, I'm Nurse Paulson from the State Mental Health Board. We're here to conduct a wellness evaluation. It's just routine, nothing to be frightened of. Iris pressed herself against the cabin wall. Sarge moved between her and the strangers, hackles raised. She ain't going nowhere, I said. Blackwood pulled out the court order, unfolded it slow, deliberate theater. Judge Porter has signed an emergency psychiatric hold. Miss Kepler has been living in conditions no sane person would endure. We have reason to believe she's a danger to herself. The law requires evaluation and treatment. The law, Martha said, voice shaken but firm, also requires due process. You can't just snatch a child. She's not a child. She's 16, nearly 17 by our records. Old enough for the state to intervene if there's clear evidence of mental instability. He looked at Iris with theatrical pity. 15 years underground, Miss Kepler. Eating rats for all we know. Talking to shadows. No reasonable person would believe you're competent to make decisions about your own welfare. It was brilliant in its cruelty. He'd taken her survival and weaponized it, made her strength look like madness. I ain't crazy, Iris said, voice small but steady. I stayed alive. That's what sane people do. Of course you did, dear. Nurse Paulson moved closer, voice dripping false kindness. And we want to help you, get you cleaned up, fed properly, into a nice facility where nobody can hear her testimony, I cut in. Where you can pump her full of drugs until she can't remember her own name, let alone what happened to her mother. Blackwood's mask slipped, just for a second. Cold calculation underneath. Mrs. Mercer, you're interfering with a legal medical evaluation. That's obstruction. I can have you arrested. Then arrest me. We stood there. Standoff. His lawyers and medical team against one widow, one old woman, and one girl who'd been buried alive. We were gonna lose. I knew it. He knew it. Then I heard it. Engine sound I recognized. The FBI helicopter from last night. Coming back. It landed in the clearing, rotor wash blowing dust and old pine needles into everybody's faces. Agent Morrison climbed out, followed by a woman in a dark suit. Mr. Blackwood, Morrison called over the dying engine noise. Convenient timing. Saved us a trip to your office. Blackwood's smile stayed fixed. Agent Morrison, this is a county matter. Mental health evaluation. Outside federal jurisdiction. Actually, the woman in the suit said, stepping forward, it's very much our jurisdiction. I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Chen. And we have some questions about a missing person case from 1937, Ruth Kepler. Ring any bells? The temperature in that clearing dropped 10 degrees. That case was closed, Blackwood said. Sheriff's office concluded she abandoned her property. No foul play suspected. Funny thing about that, Morrison said. We've been reviewing Sheriff Riggs's original reports. Lots of inconsistencies, timeline problems. And this morning, the sheriff himself came to our field office, voluntarily, brought some interesting documents with him. Blackwood's jaw tightened. Whatever Riggs told you, he's a disgraced officer trying to save his own skin. He brought us the original evidence logs, Chen interrupted. The ones showing he confiscated water samples, soil samples, and laboratory reports from this property in 1937. Evidence that mysteriously never made it into the case file. Evidence that you personally signed for at the county clerk's office 3 days after Ruth Kepler disappeared. The silence was absolute. And then, Morrison continued, we have testimony from Martha Abernathy about a minor child who's been concealed on this property for 15 years. A child who happens to be your granddaughter, Mr. Blackwood, product of your son's relationship with Ruth Kepler, a relationship your family never acknowledged. Blackwood's face went gray. There's no proof of... Actually, I said, pulling out the one card I'd been saving. There is. I reached into my coat, pulled out the small leather notebook I'd found in Ruth's things, the one I'd read by lamplight while Iris slept. Ruth Kepler kept detailed records, including a letter from your son, written 3 weeks before he died in 1918, acknowledging the pregnancy, promising to marry her when he came home. I opened it to the marked page. You want me to read it out loud? The part where he says, "Father will try to stop us, but I don't care. You and our child are my future?" Blackwood lunged for the notebook. Agent Morrison caught his arm. Don't, Morrison said quietly. Don't make this worse. That letter is stolen property. That letter, Chen said, is evidence in a federal investigation into murder, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. And if you touch it, I'll add witness tampering to the list. Nurse Paulson and the two lawyers were backing toward their vehicles. Rats leaving a sinking ship. Blackwood stood there, decades of power crumbling around him like old mortar. Miss Kepler, Chen said, turning to Iris, we'd like you to come with us, not to a hospital, to our field office, where you can give testimony in safety, with legal representation present. Is that acceptable to you? Iris looked at me, questioning. I nodded. It's all right. They're the real thing, not his people. Will Evelyn come with me? Iris asked. If she's willing, Chen said. I'm willing. Martha stepped forward. So am I. She's my niece. My blood. I should have claimed her 15 years ago. I'm claiming her now. Chen smiled. First genuine warmth I'd seen from a federal agent. Then it's settled. Miss Kepler has family support. Medical evaluation will be conducted by our doctors. Any psychiatric assessment will be independent, court-appointed, not county-affiliated. She turned to Blackwood. As for you, Mr. Blackwood, we'll be in touch. Don't leave the state. They took him, not in handcuffs, not yet, but surrounded by FBI, his expensive lawyers suddenly silent. The county vehicles left, the medical team gone. Just us and the feds. Morrison looked at the cabin, at the stone fireplace visible through the open door. Mrs. Mercer, we're going to need to process this as a crime scene. Document everything. You'll need to find other accommodations for a few days. I understand. And the evidence Miss Kepler mentioned, the water sample she's been wearing around her neck. We'll need that too. Iris reached up, touched the vial, hesitated. It's all I got left of my mother. I know, Chen said gently. But it's also the thing that'll put the man who killed her in prison for the rest of his life. Which one matters more? Iris looked at the vial, then at Martha, then at me. She pulled it off, handed it to Chen. Justice matters more, Iris said. That's what my mother would say. Justice matters more than memory. Chen took the vial like it was holy. Maybe it was. Your mother would be proud of you, she said. We packed what little we had, climbed into the FBI vehicles. As we pulled away, I looked back at the cabin, small, dark, haunted by 15 years of silence. But the silence was broken now, and the ghosts could finally rest. The FBI field office in Great Falls smelled of burnt coffee and fluorescent lights. They set us up in a conference room, me, Iris, and Martha on one side of a long table, Agent Morrison and Attorney Chen on the other. A stenographer in the corner, fingers poised over her machine. Iris told her story. All of it. 15 years compressed into 2 hours of testimony. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, like she was remembering how to be human. Chen listened without interrupting, made notes, asked careful questions. The night your mother disappeared. Walk me through it one more time. Iris closed her eyes, remembering. It was late, October, maybe November. Cold enough I needed a blanket in the cellar. I heard men's voices, shouting. Mama was arguing back. She said, "You can't silence the truth. I've sent copies to the State Bureau, to newspapers in Helena and Butte. Even if you kill me, it won't matter." Did you recognize any voices? One. He called her Ruth, not Mrs. Kepler, just Ruth. familiar, like they knew each other. He said, "You stupid woman, you've killed yourself and you don't even know it yet." Can you identify that voice now? Iris nodded, opened her eyes. Yes, ma'am. I heard it again, 2 days ago, when he came to the cabin with Evelyn. Clayton Blackwood? No, ma'am. The other one. Morrison leaned forward. What other one? The one who acted friendly, who pretended he was just worried about Evelyn's safety. My blood went cold. I knew before she said it. Sheriff Riggs. He was there that night. He's the one who told my mother she'd killed herself. The room went silent. Chen's face was unreadable. You're certain? 15 years is a long time. Memory can... I heard that voice every night for 15 years, Iris said, steel in her tone. In my dreams, in my nightmares, telling my mother she was already dead. I know that voice the way you know your own heartbeat. Morrison stood up. Started pacing. But Riggs came in this morning, voluntarily, brought evidence, confessed to obstruction. Because he knew you were closing in, I said, pieces fallen into place. He came forward to control the narrative, play the weak man who got pressured by Blackwood, the reluctant accomplice, not the murderer. Martha's face had gone white as bone. That's why he closed the case so fast, not because Blackwood told him to, because he was the one who did it. Chen was already on her phone. Morrison, get units to Riggs's house. Now, if he catches wind, we know. The door burst open. Junior agent, breathless. Ma'am, we've got a problem. Harlan Riggs never went home after his visit to the Mercer property this morning. His truck was found 20 minutes ago at the county airport. Small plane took off at 0847 hours. Filed flight plan to Spokane, but he's not going to Spokane, Morrison finished. How much of a head start? 4 hours, sir. Chen slammed her hand on the table, professional mask cracking. Get the FAA on the line. I want that plane tracked. I want every airport between here and the Canadian border notified, and I want... Ma'am, the junior agent looked sick. There's more. We executed the warrant on Blackwood's ranch an hour ago, found documents, financial records, payoffs going back 30 years. Good, that's good. Including payments to Sheriff Riggs. Monthly deposits. Started in 1937, the month Ruth Kepler disappeared. The room went dead quiet. How much? Chen asked. $200 a month. Every month. For 15 years. Total of $36,000. Martha made a sound like she'd been gut-punched. That's why he could afford to build that new house. Why his kids went to private schools. We all wondered where a sheriff's salary stretched that far. We never asked questions, I finished. Because he wore a badge, because he seemed decent, because monsters don't look like monsters until you shine light on them. Chen's phone buzzed. She answered. Listened. Her face went hard. Understood. Thank you. She hung up, looked at us. Riggs's plane landed in Cut Bank 30 minutes ago. Small municipal airport. By the time local police arrived, he'd switched to a private vehicle, headed north. Canada, Morrison said. He's running for the border. We've got units converging. Border Patrol's been notified. But it's a lot of empty country between here and there. Chen turned to Iris. Miss Kepler, I need you to understand something. Harlan Riggs is likely the man who killed your mother. And right now, he's running scared. If we don't catch him before he crosses into Canada, he gets away with it, Iris said. Flat, defeated. We won't let that happen, Chen said. But I heard the doubt in her voice. 30 years of practice running from justice. Riggs knew every back road, every blind spot, every weakness in the system, and he had a 4-hour head start. Martha reached across the table, took Iris's hand. There's something else, Martha said quietly. Something I should have told you before. About your mother's evidence. The samples she collected. We all looked at her. Ruth didn't just have one set. She was smart. Paranoid even. She made duplicates of everything, kept them in different locations. Where? Chen demanded. Martha's hands were shaken. One set she buried on my property, in my root cellar, under the potato bins. Been there since 1937. I knew about it. She told me, if anything happens, Dig 3 feet down, north corner. I never, I never had the courage to look. Are you saying? I'm saying we got more than one vial. We got dozens. Soil samples, water samples, Ruth's original laboratory documentation, everything Blackwood thought he'd destroyed. Chen was already moving. Morrison, get a team to the Abernathy property, now. I want those samples recovered and transported under federal protection. Hope flickered. Evidence. Real evidence. Not just testimony from a girl who'd been buried alive. Not just the word of a widow nobody trusted. Physical proof. Scientific proof. The kind that holds up in any court in any state. But in the back of my mind, one thought kept gnawing. Riggs knew about Martha's involvement. He'd seen her truck at my cabin. Seen her with Iris. What if he'd already figured out where Ruth's backup evidence was hidden? What if he was heading north because he'd already destroyed the only other proof that could hang him? Iris looked at me, read my face. He already got it, didn't he? She whispered. That's why he came to your cabin this morning. Not to confess. To see if we knew about Aunt Martha's cellar. To gauge how much time he had. And I realized, Riggs's confession wasn't penance. It was reconnaissance. He'd come to find out exactly what we knew, and when he realized we didn't know about the backup evidence yet, he'd gone to destroy it before we could. We drove to Martha's property in a convoy, 2 FBI vehicles, lights flashing, pushing 80 on roads meant for 50. Martha sat beside me in the lead car, hands twisted together like she was praying. If he got there first, she whispered, if he destroyed it all, then we still got Iris's testimony. We still got the financial records. We still got hope, she finished. We still got hope. The Abernathy General Store sat on Main Street, 2-story building with living quarters above. We pulled up to find the front door hanging open, lock broken clean through. Morrison went in first, weapon drawn, cleared the store, the back room, then the cellar door, standing open, light on below. We followed him down. Old stone steps, smell of earth and potatoes and something else. Gasoline. The cellar was chaos. Potato bins overturned, north corner dug up, dirt scattered everywhere. And in the middle of it all, empty glass vials, dozens of them, smashed. Contents soaked into the earth, soil sample bags ripped open, contents mixed with gasoline, rendered useless for testing, papers scattered, half burned. Someone had started a fire, then thought better of it. Too much smoke, too visible. But the damage was done. 15 years of evidence. Ruth Kepler's life's work. Destroyed. Martha sank to her knees in the dirt, made a sound like her heart was breaking all over again. He won, she whispered. After everything, he won. I looked at the wreckage, at the systematic destruction, at the… Wait. Agent Morrison, I said. How long ago was this done? He examined the half-burned papers. The gasoline still wet on the floor. Hour, maybe 2. Why? Because this is sloppy. Riggs was a sheriff for 30 years. He knows how to destroy evidence proper. Burn it complete. Make sure nothing survives. This… I gestured at the mess. This is panic. This is someone who got interrupted. Chen was already on her radio. All units, Riggs may still be in the area. Repeat, suspect may not have left town yet. Expand search radius. That's when we heard it. Upstairs. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Morrison raised his weapon, moved toward the stairs. A voice from above. Don't shoot. I'm coming down. Hands where you can see 'em. Not Riggs, Earl Abernathy, Martha's husband. 72 years old, hands raised, face gray as old ashes. Earl? Martha stood up. What are you… I stopped him, Earl said quietly. Riggs. He came here about an hour ago. Knew you'd told the FBI, knew about the cellar. He had a gun, demanded I show him where Ruth hid the samples. So you did, Morrison said. Not a question. I did. Watched him destroy everything. Gasoline, fire. Thought he'd shoot me after, but he didn't. Just ran. Said he had a plane waiting, said Canada wouldn't extradite for a 30-year-old crime. Where'd he go? Chen demanded. Earl looked at his wife. at the woman he'd chosen his job over, his comfort over, his silence over. I followed him, in my truck, kept back far enough he didn't notice. He's holed up in the old Wilson grain silo, east of town, waiting for dark before he makes his run for the border. Morrison was already moving, radioing coordinates, calling in backup. But I was watching Earl, watching the way he looked at Martha. Why? I asked. After 30 years of looking the other way, why now? Earl's hands dropped. He looked at his wife with eyes full of regret deep as mine shafts. Because this morning, when she told me she was going to that cabin, I said don't come back. And she didn't. She chose right over me. After 42 years of me choosing wrong, she finally chose right. He pulled something from his pocket. Set it on the overturned potato bin. A tape recorder. Old cassette style. Red light still blinking. I recorded everything. Riggs bragging about how he killed Ruth, how Blackwood paid him, how they made it look like she ran off, how he would have killed that girl too if he'd known she was alive. All of it, on tape. Chen grabbed the recorder like it was made of gold. This is admissible. If he didn't know he was being recorded, if you're willing to testify. I'll testify, Earl said. Against Blackwood, against Riggs, against every man in this county who took money to look the other way while people died. He looked at Martha. I can't undo 30 years of wrong, but I can stop pretending it was right. Martha stood there, torn between 42 years of marriage and 42 years of betrayal. Then Iris spoke. First time since we'd arrived. Mr. Abernathy, you kept your store going with blood money. You chose profit over my mother's life. Over my aunt's conscience, over 15 years of me living in darkness. Earl nodded. I did. I got no defense, no excuse. But you stopped him today. You got proof. You're telling the truth now. Too late to matter. No, sir. Iris stepped forward. Small, pale, fragile as winter ice, but steady. It's never too late for truth. My mother taught me that. Even if it costs you everything. Even if nobody thanks you. Truth matters. She extended her hand to him. Earl stared at it. At forgiveness he didn't deserve from a girl he'd helped bury. He took it. Shook it once. Firm. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet, Iris said. You got a long road ahead, making this right. Yes, ma'am, I reckon I do. 2 hours later, we stood in a field outside town watching FBI tactical teams surround the grain silo, loudspeakers ordering Riggs to surrender, negotiations, standoff. Then, as the sun touched the mountains, the silo door opened. Harlan Riggs walked out. Hands up. No weapon. 30 years of running finally over. They took him in handcuffs, read him his rights, loaded him into an armored vehicle. As they drove past us, he looked out the window, saw Iris standing there, the girl he'd thought was buried forever. His face went white, not fear, recognition. He knew, finally knew, that some things can't stay buried, that truth has a way of rising. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of a new cabin, built on the same foundation as the old one, same Riverstone fireplace, but everything else fresh, clean, alive. Iris was inside making coffee. She'd gained 20 pounds, learned to laugh again, started school in town, the first Kepler woman to finish high school. Martha visited twice a week. She and Earl were rebuilding, slow, painful, but rebuilding. The adoption papers had come through in April, legal, official. Iris Kepler Mercer, my daughter, chosen, not born, but mine. Sarge was getting old. Gray muzzle turned white, but he still kept watch, still protected his family. Blackwood was in federal prison. 25 years, no parole. Riggs got life. Murder, conspiracy, obstruction. The mine was shut down. Cleanup started. Wells tested. Families compensated. Ruth Kepler's name was on a memorial in the town square now. Truth teller, mother, hero. I heard footsteps behind me. Iris, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She handed me one, sat beside me on the porch swing Thomas built in another lifetime. Mama, she said, still testing the word, rolling it around like a new coin. You ever regret it? Buying this place? Everything that happened after? I looked at her. At the daughter I'd found by refusing to leave. At the family I'd built from ghosts and secrets and $500. Not for 1 second. The sun rose over the mountains, gold and pink and perfect. A new day, clean, honest, free. Iris leaned her head on my shoulder. I put my arm around her. Two women who'd survived what they shouldn't have. Two women who'd chosen each other. Family ain't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who see you buried and decide to dig you out. Sometimes it's the people who stay when everyone else runs. Sometimes it's just two souls who looked at darkness and said, "Not today." The coffee was strong. The morning was beautiful. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't haunted by ghosts. I was home. I've told you a story about a widow and a girl who lived in darkness, but it ain't really about them, is it? It's about what happens when we stop pretending we don't see the wrong right in front of us. For 15 years, a whole county knew something wasn't right about Ruth Kepler's disappearance. Folks whispered, wondered. But wondering ain't the same as asking, and asking ain't the same as demanding answers. Evelyn Mercer, she was just a woman tired of being quiet. Tired of being told her place. Tired of watching powerful men bury the truth along with the bodies. She paid $500 for a piece of cursed ground. What she got was a chance to dig up what should have never been buried. Family ain't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the stranger who stands between you and the fire. Sometimes it's the aunt who feeds you in darkness for 15 years because it's all the courage she can manage. Sometimes it's the broken man who finally tells the truth when it costs him everything. Dignity don't come from blood, it comes from choice. Ruth Kepler chose truth over safety. Iris chose survival over surrender. Evelyn chose a buried girl over blood money. And in the end, even Earl Abernathy, a man who'd spent 30 years choosing wrong, chose right when it mattered most. That's the thing about justice. It's patient, it's quiet, but it don't forget, and it don't need permission to rise. If you've ever been the person nobody believed, if you've ever been told to stay quiet for your own good, if you've ever wondered whether speaking up is worth losing everything, this story's for you. Truth has a cost, always does, but silence costs more. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you of a wrong that needs rightin' or a person who needs findin' or a truth that needs tellin', I'd be honored to hear about it. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me whose name should be remembered. Because every Ruth Kepler, every Iris, every person who got buried by powerful men who thought they could, they deserve to be dug up. They deserve to breathe free, and they deserve to be remembered. Until next time, may your truth be louder than their lies, and may you never be too tired to dig.